everyone, my name is Krystal Diaz and I'm a singer, vocal coach, and co-founder of the Pure Singing platform. So this video is going to be about how you can develop a stronger voice by practicing just one exercise. Now this exercise, if done correctly, is incredibly effective on helping you to develop more definition in your tone. So if you have a tendency to sound a little breathy, or you lose air really quickly, or people have troubles hearing you, even if you're using a microphone, or you're finding that your sound isn't clear or muffled perhaps, then this is a really good one for you. And the other great thing about this exercise is that both singers and speakers can use this. So if you're a speaker or presenter out there and you're watching this video, this is definitely valuable for you too. So this exercise is called the vocal fry, and it sounds like this. Or you could do it as an E vowel, E, E, or as an vowel, It's kind of this croaky, edgy, craggly kind of sound, if that is even a word. So there are three important points that I want you to bear in mind when you're doing this exercise. The first one is do not be loud. You're not pushing something, you're not lifting something heavy, you're not being aggressive on your vocal folds. The second thing is you don't need a whole lot of air to do this exercise. And in fact, if you use too much air to do this exercise, you actually can't do it. And the third thing I want you to bear in mind is to think lazy. And what I mean by that is I don't want you to be lazy, because when you're doing any kind of vocal exercises, it is quite an active process. Like, you need to be alert about what you're doing, how you're sitting, where your posture is. So I don't want you to be lazy, but I want you to think lazy, kind of like, I'm really lazy right now, I don't want to do anything, kind of like that. So I find that if you have kind of bear that quality in mind, then it's easier to understand how to use less volume and how to use less air when doing this exercise. So what is this exercise? Where is it coming from? And why are we doing it? Well, if you put your hand on your throat and you make this sound, that is the sound of the vocal folds coming together over a column of air in pulses. Okay, so that's basically how we create sound. The vocal folds come together, we blow some air in between them. It creates a sound wave, which is then amplified through our vocal tract. So this vocal fry exercise is basically taking that idea and using the least amount of air to create this steady stream of sound. So we can do that again together. So I'm taking that sound quality and I'm extending it out into an elongated sound. So there are a couple of reasons why we would do this exercise. Firstly, it draws your attention to where your vocal folds actually are, and it gives you that awareness of that balance between the air that's passing through and the vocal folds coming together over that column of air. Oftentimes when I work with students, you know, if I ask you where your vocal folds are, you may not. You'll kind of know it's here somewhere, but you might not really know how to feel for it. So this is a really good exercise to draw your attention to that. And the reason we want to draw our attention to it is because, like I said earlier, singing, we all know that air is very important. You can't sing without air, but we often overvalue how much, or overestimate how much air we think we need, especially if we're trying to belt or wanting to have more power and strength in our singing voice. We tend to think that means we have to push a lot of air, you know, out through our sound to create a lot of sound. And actually that is not really the case. We have to learn to be efficient with our air. We have to learn how to use it properly, but we also have to be balanced. We don't want to be shoving a whole lot of air behind, you know, underneath our vocal folds and expecting our vocal folds to be able to manage all of that sound. So if you suspect that you actually do have that tendency to use way too much air when you're singing, so by either being very loud, like you're just blasting a lot of sound out, or on the other end of the extreme, that you're being very breathy, your sound is very dispersed, and you run out of air very quickly, you'll find that in both cases, they could lead to vocal damage if you're constantly singing that way. What I mean by that is like loss of voice, in the extreme case, maybe even development of some vocal nodules perhaps, but also you'll have troubles with staying in pitch, obviously managing your air. You'll find that when you do have to take breath, you really have to take in a lot more because you've just, you know, expended so much out. And at the end of the day, singing like that can be quite exhausting. And if you are feeling exhausted, all the more it's going to be hard for you to control your performance. So in terms of the actual exercise, we're going to take an E vowel and inject a little bit of that vocal fry sound into it. And we're going to sing it on a 5-tone pitch pattern on a downward direction. And at this point, getting the exact pitch and being right on pitch, it doesn't really matter. What's more important is that you're moving through the pitches, and you're creating that sound quality. That's actually more important than, you know, hitting the right note exactly. And the focus here, again, we're not going E, 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 E. We're not just saying E, we're actually doing it with that vocal fry quality. So for guys who might be doing this exercise, that key was in my range, in female key range, so you may not feel too comfortable doing it that way. You can go a little lower. So you can start down here. Kind of doing that vocal fry sound with the E. Down here. Alternatively, if you found that a little challenging, you can also try going on an ascent. But instead of doing a 5-tone, we can just do a 3-tone. So like that. So for guys, you will want to start a little lower, maybe around here. So you can play around with that. You can either go from a descent on a 5-tone descent, or you can go on the 3-tone up, and you can go back and forth if you want to. Don't do this like crazy. Like, don't go and do this for hours and hours on end. In fact, just a couple minutes is fine. So after practicing that a few times, the goal is to string all the notes together in a legato manner, like this. So you can hear I'm still retaining a little bit of that vocal fry quality in the first note, but then I'm kind of letting it go as I'm singing through the pitches. But I'm still retaining a bit of that quality, of that core sound quality in my voice. So use it as a reminder. And then you let it go. So you move into a more normal sound quality. Eventually you can take the sound into a song as well, and if you're finding that as you're singing you start to lose this solidity and this clarity of your tone, you can always jump back into the exercise, or you can practice using a little bit of vocal fry, inject a little bit of that into the beginnings of your phrases, so that you can remind yourself again of where that sound is coming from and how to minimize your airflow so that you can create a more defined, solid tone. So a really, really important point to bear in mind, that if you find that you're starting to sound like this, that you can hear there's a lot of extraneous air sounds coming out of there, and it's almost resembling more of a grunt kind of sound. Or if you're feeling any tickle sensation in your throat, or any strain, or this is just really hard, you can't create any sound qualities, just stop, because it may mean that you actually will need a little bit more tailored guidance as to how to locate this sound. Never force anything that doesn't feel right. So Bradley Cooper in When a Star is Born, and also Amy Winehouse, these are two examples of singers that I feel you can really hear what I mean by that core sound, that solidity, and that almost kind of grittiness in their voices. I'm not saying that you have to sing like them or have to have, you know, that much presence of this kind of grittiness in your voice, but to practice it and to build it into your routine is a great way for you to develop your own style. And ultimately, the reason we do exercises is so that we really learn to understand our instrument, so that we can use it better, so that we can be more expressive, right? We're not just technique machines. We're not just learning technique for the sake of learning technique. We're learning it so that we can make choices when we're singing our songs. So I hope that that was helpful. And if you liked it, remember to subscribe and do let me know if you have any questions about it. And also, if you're interested in doing some of these exercises on your own, I do have a free resource that I've created called free vocal resources, free vocal exercises. Not a very creative title, but I'll link to it below in the comment box, and you can literally go in and try out some of these exercises on your own. So do check it out. I hope you liked it, and I'll see you again next time.